The Senate Committee on Growth and Infrastructure will come to order. Will the Secretary please call the roll?
Senator Brooks. Here. Senator Hammond. Senator Pickard. Senator Spearman. Chair Harris.
Here. Please note there are 3 members present. Please mark Senators Spearman and Hammond present as they arrive. Given we do not have all of our members, we will start off with the hearing. So I will go ahead and open the hearing for Senate Bill 442 and welcome the Governor's Office of Energy to the Senate Committee on Growth and Infrastructure. Go ahead and begin when you are ready.
Thank you, Chair Harris. Members of the committee, David Bobstein for the record, Director of the Governor's Office of Energy, and I'm joined today by Robin Yoakum, who is the Program Manager overseeing the Green Building Tax Abatement Program. Thank you for the opportunity to present SB 442, which prospectively eliminates the program to provide the partial abatement of property taxes for certain buildings and structures which meet certain energy efficiency standards. We are talking about the Green Building Tax Abatement Program. You will often hear the shorthand GBTA. Robin Yoakum will walk us through sort of the logic and the rationale behind our recommendation to essentially retire the program. I will say that this is a prospective retirement. Existing abatements certainly will continue. I will also flag that, jumping to the end of the bill, the effective date of this legislation is upon passage. You will be hearing testimony later from the Nevada Resort Association indicating an interest in exploring a later effective date. We have started a conversation with the organization and have not come to an agreement just yet, but we look forward to working with them to see if we can figure something out on that front. So with that, Madam Chair, I would like to turn it over to Ms. Yoakum to walk us through the slide deck that she's prepared, providing the rationale behind this legislation. I will also note that this is a budget bill. This is part of Governor Sisolak's recommended budget.
Thank you, Director Bobstein, and good afternoon, Chair Harris and members of the committee. Robin Yoakum for the record, Program Manager with the Governor's Office of Energy. Thank you again for allowing us to present this bill to you today. Before we review the Green Building Tax Abatement Program, I would like to give you some context about the International Energy Conservation Code, or IECC. NRS 701.220 directs the GOE to adopt the most recently published version of the IECC every 3 years. Each iteration of the IECC increases the efficiency of newly constructed commercial and residential buildings. The 2012 IECC was more efficient than the 2009, the 2015 slightly more efficient than the 2012, but the 2018 IECC was determined to be 16% more efficient than the 2012, showing one of the largest increases in efficiency in the different iterations of the IECC. GOE adopted the 2018 IECC in July of 2018 and is in the process of adopting the 2021 IECC, which is about 10% more efficient than the 2018 version. What that means is that the 2021 IECC will be 26% more efficient than the 2012. The 2012 IECC is the baseline for comparison in the rating systems that participate in the program. So once the 2021 IECC is adopted, abatements will be awarded for projects that construct to the state adopted code. As you are all aware, our office, along with multiple state agencies, participated in the development of the state climate strategy. In the strategy, the continued adoption of energy codes was analyzed, and it was determined that energy codes are instrumental in achieving Nevada's climate goals. According to the U.S. Department of Energy, energy codes are projected to save U.S. homes and businesses about $126 billion between 2012 and 2040. These numbers were calculated with the assumption that new, updated codes would continue to be adopted. So there are multiple benefits to adopting the most recent version of the IECC, and these are just a few examples. Lower energy bills, healthier indoor environments, energy efficient homes and businesses, and helping to meet the state's climate goals. Now I would like to dive into the GBTA program and how energy codes have a role in awarding the abatements. In 2005, the GBTA program was enacted to address an energy market substantially different than today's. It provided an incentive to business owners to increase the efficiency of the built environment in the state in an effort to bring new businesses and jobs into Nevada. NRS 701A.100 specifies that the Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design, or LEED, rating system, or an equivalent, is the rating system in which projects are required to certify under to receive the abatement. In 2013, GOE adopted through regulation the Green Globes rating system as an equivalent rating system for certification. The energy points achieved in the new construction rating systems utilize the 2012 IECC or ASHRAE 90.1-2010 standard as the baseline for comparison to award the specific energy points as dictated in NRS 701A.100 and NRS 701A.110. Existing buildings are compared to a national database of comparison properties, known as the Commercial Building Energy Consumption Survey, CBECS, which is provided by the Energy Information Administration. Most of these comparison properties were built prior to 1980. As mentioned earlier, the IECC increases the required efficiency of newly constructed buildings every 3 years when published. The continuance of the GBTA program after the 2021 IECC has been adopted will allow owners to receive an abatement for building to the minimum standard already adopted in the state, thus no longer aligning with the intent of the program as initially established in NRS. Upon adoption of the 2018 IECC by GOE, local jurisdictions followed suit, and the largest populated areas in the state have adopted the same. By July of 2020, 47% of the jurisdictions in the state had adopted the 2018 IECC, which represents 96.5% of Nevada's population. This slide shows which jurisdictions, counties, and municipalities have adopted the 2018 IECC, which includes Clark, Washoe, Story, Carson City, Douglas, Elko, and Nye, all of whom have had one or more projects in their jurisdiction that has been awarded an abatement. In this slide, we wanted to show the different counties and the percentage of projects that have been awarded an abatement. As you can see, 81%, the largest portion of projects, have been in Clark County, with over half of those projects being a resort casino type of project. As I mentioned earlier, abatements are awarded for achieving certification through either the LEED or Green Globes rating systems per current statute. And out of 221 projects receiving an abatement, or that have received an abatement, 85 have been awarded an abatement utilizing the LEED rating system, and 136 projects have utilized the Green Globes rating system. As you can see, this covers over 210 million square feet of building stock. This next slide shows the fiscal impact of the abatements to the counties and municipalities where those abatements have been awarded. An estimated $275 million of property taxes will have been abated over the life of the program, and the largest portion of those dollars, roughly $250 million, will be from Clark County. Upon adoption of the 2018 IECC, GOE recognized a need to evaluate the efficacy of the GBTA program as the adoption of more efficient codes would continue. GOE contracted with a neutral third-party vendor who possessed experience in green building practices and the IECC. The vendor evaluated the relationship of the minimum energy efficiency levels required to achieve the specified energy points in comparison to both the 2018 and the 2021 IECC. This analysis was emailed to the committee yesterday and is uploaded in Nellis as one of the attachments. In a few slides, I'll show you a graph that shows this comparison. During the analysis performed, it was noted that upon adoption of the 2018 IECC, the first tier for the abatement for new construction was simply compliant with the required codes. Again, I'll show you this comparison in just a few slides. So under current statute, the abatements are awarded based on optimized energy points achieved and the overall level, whether that's silver, gold, or platinum. The energy points dictate the term of the abatement, which are calculated based on a percentage of improvement over the baseline of the 2012 IECC or ASH rate 90.1-2010 standard. To receive at least 5 points, depending on the project type, the project must achieve an improvement somewhere between 7% to 14% over that baseline. 7 points would require an 11 to 18% improvement above the baseline, and 11 points, which is the top tier, require 19 to 26% improvement above the baseline. The points achieved, whether it's 5, 7, 11, or otherwise, do dictate the term of the abatement. So to achieve the highest level, as you saw in the prior slide, the project is required to achieve between a 19 to 26% improvement. This, as long as they got the platinum level as well, would equate to achieving that platinum level, and then they would receive or could receive a 35% abatement for up to 10 years. 15% of the projects have achieved the lowest level, 61% of the projects have achieved a gold level, and 19% have achieved the platinum level. This is important as most of the projects have achieved a gold level or the equivalent. So this graph is showing the comparison of the baselines and the adopted codes. This graph depicts the minimum and maximum required percentage of improvements over the baseline to achieve the required points. As you can see in the green bar, the minimum percentages, depending on the points, range from 7 to 19%, and the dark blue bar ranges from 14 to 26%, again, depending on the points achieved. The light blue bar is comparing the 2018 IECC against the minimum and maximum percentages of improvement, with that final beige bar at the end comparing the 2021 IECC against the minimum and maximums in the rating system. The percentages do differ between project types, which is why there's an overlap in the 5 and 7 OEP points awarded. Currently, at the adoption of the 2018, achieving 5 points awards an abatement for being less efficient than the 2018 IECC, as shown in this graph, which again is only 15% of the projects. The 7 points represent 61% of the project, which is either slightly below the 2018 or slightly higher. And upon adoption of the 2021 energy codes, these projects are going to be about 8% less efficient than the 2021 IECC. So achieving 11 points or higher, which represents, again, a small portion of it, which is only about 19% of the projects, achieves a higher level of efficiency over the 2018. But as you can see, upon adoption of the 2021 IECC, achieving the 11 points awards an abatement for being compliant with the state adopted code. And again, that's depending on the percentage improvement. Over the life of the program, less than 15% of the projects eligible for an abatement have achieved a 26% savings over the 2012 IECC. So lastly, we would like to review some of the challenges with the GBTA program. Since the enactment of NRS 701A in 2005, both new construction and existing building projects could participate in the program. However, in 2011, existing buildings were taken out and only new construction projects could apply. The program was drastically modified during the 2007 session to address concerns that had arisen after the enactment of the program. So prior to 2013, there was no cap on the abatement awarded for existing buildings. However, after the 2013 session and the enactment of AB 33, a cap of $100,000 per year was implemented, and that was per project. AB 33 did identify that unless there was a cap on existing buildings, the fiscal impact could be significant to the municipalities, counties, so forth. So there have been multiple challenges with this program since inception, ranging from a potential drain on the local government's budget, which was addressed in AB 33, awarding abatements to condominium projects without requiring the owners to continue or improve the efficiency of the condo, and allowing a single building to receive multiple abatements, increasing the amount of abated taxes beyond the established cap. Both of these challenges were addressed through regulation in 2019. If this bill does not pass, upon adoption of the 2021 IECC, the state will award abatements to building owners for complying with the building code or even being less efficient than the adopted code. In 2024, GOE and local governments will adopt the 2024 IECC, which will again increase the efficiency of the code, perpetuating this cycle. GOE has concluded that the original intent of the program is no longer being met with the increased adoption of required energy codes. And with that, we thank you for your time and we'll stand for any questions.
Thank you so much. Do committee members have any questions? Senator Pickard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm trying to make sure I understand what's happening. So just to simplify or summarize, it sounds like as the IECC improves and more jurisdictions adopt the IECC as a minimum standard, more and more buildings are already meeting the prior requirements and so would be subject to the abatement. Is that an accurate summary?
Chair Harris, for the record, David Bobzien, through you to Senator Pickard.
And you can go directly,
Exactly.
Mr. Bobzien.
Thank you.
Okay, and so as I understood, and mind you, I came from the development world before I went to law school, so I'm very familiar with Green Globes and LEED you know, we used to hire professionals, you know, architects and engineers that were LEED certified, and I've been part of those kind of projects, so I'm pretty familiar with it. But my understanding of the purpose of the abatement was to incentivize better than standard construction. And so unless you're saying that the IECC is currently hitting at absolute maximum efficiency that we could not expect to get better than that, why wouldn't we continue to incentivize better than standard development? Instead, what you're doing is you're removing the financial incentive, because I can tell you it's more expensive to build to higher than standard construction than standard construction. It costs more. And so if we don't give a developer an incentive to spend that money on the development, knowing that he can still be profitable or she can still be profitable in that development, aren't we kind of undermining the whole move towards efficiency and merely saying, okay, now everybody has to just meet the standard, and we're doing away with an incentive to do better than standard?
Thank you, Senator Pickard, for the question. David Bobzien, for the record. That is the conversation that is in the future, and it's a very important one. I think what you have before you with this bill is a recognition that, yes, the current program is quickly going to become obsolete as these later editions of the IECC are adopted and are more efficient. I am an optimist that that trajectory of ever more efficient code versions has not hit a ceiling, and we will see over time further gains. To the point about incentivizing high performance buildings, we're very much interested in having that conversation. And of course, the Nevada Climate Strategy certainly recognizes the very large share of our greenhouse gas emissions profile the built environment takes up. So at some point, we are going to have to ask, what do we do to go beyond and partner with developers in the development community to make sure that we are creating a space where people can really excel and go beyond and really strive for high performance buildings. That said, we did not believe that, given the history of the program, the challenges that Ms. Yocum laid out, that this office has repeatedly tried to get out ahead of with different regulatory changes, that we really kind of had to do a level set, stop the current program, and then we could set the stage for a subsequent conversation about what is next. And so, Senator, we look forward to working with you and other members of the legislature in the future to revisit this topic.
Well, thank you for that. I mean, I appreciate the candor. Usually we get a dodge when we're talking about eliminating what has been a very successful program. But I wonder if we're putting the cart before the horse. I can tell you as a developer, particularly where I was working with those where we were trying to build better than standard construction from the start, it still came down to a money-making proposition. If we couldn't make a profit, we couldn't do it. And so there were many things that we elected not to do because we simply couldn't afford it. Now you're making it even harder. And so rather than saying, okay, we recognize that under the current regs, this program ultimately would be too expensive to the localities. So why not come up with a new standard to beat and tag this, maintain the abatements, future abatements to those that are still better than standard. We're going to adopt a higher standard, but we'll still incentivize better than standard instead of just saying we're eliminating the incentive altogether, because that will, I will guarantee it, that will slow the progress. So you're essentially putting the brakes on green development without having a new standard to move toward. So, I would think that we would want to build into this, maybe rather than simply abating it, moving the goalposts, which will upset a good number of people in the first place, but I get it. But to continue to incentivize better than standard construction. Otherwise, everybody's just going to go back to, we'll meet the standard and, who cares about trying to do better? Until there's an incentive, until there's a way to make up for the difference in cost, except for those rare individuals who can afford to do better than standard on the principle alone, you're going to kill that momentum that we've developed over the past 20 years.
So, Senator, I would, David Bobstein, for the record, I would respectfully disagree with the characterization that this is going to kill momentum on green building. The point is, if the legislature doesn't act on this legislation, we will essentially be providing, in very short order, incentives for construction that is meeting the minimum standard. And I think that that is not a situation that any of us would want to be in. I agree with the hope for the future that we can revisit this and move the goalposts, if you will, to make sure that there's some sort of incentive package that is available to partner with the development community so that we can incentivize higher performing buildings. But I would argue that moving those goalposts is not a matter of just, okay, do we pick 10 yards down the field and just move it? I think it's going to be a far more complex conversation than just us coming to the legislature as an agency and saying, hey, here are the goalposts and we think we should move them forward this far. That said, like I said, we stand ready to have that conversation with the development community, with those that are interested in green building, to see if there is a future program that we can look at, particularly in the context of meeting our state's climate goals.
Any additional questions? Okay, not seeing any, we will go ahead and move on to testimony. Is there anyone in the room who'd like to testify in support of this bill? Not seeing any. I don't believe we have anyone on Zoom, but I'll just quickly ask, anyone on Zoom want to turn the camera on and testify in support of this bill? Okay, BPS, could you please see if there's anyone on the phone who'd like to testify in support?
Thank you, Chair. Callers, if you'd like to testify in support of SB 442, please press star 9 now to enter the queue. Will the first caller with the last 3 digits of 533 please state and spell your name for the record? You may begin.
Good afternoon. For the record, this is Dylan Sullivan, and my name is spelled DYLAN SULLIVAN. Good afternoon, Chair Harris, Vice Chair Brooks, and members of the committee. I'm a senior scientist at the Natural Resources Defense Council. NRDC works to safeguard the Earth, its people, its planet, and its plants and animals, and the natural systems on which all life depends. We have around 25,000 members and online activists in the state of Nevada. NRDC supports Senate Bill 442 for a couple of reasons. First, the Green Buildings Tax Abatement Program, might have served a purpose in the past, but right now is not providing good bang for the buck. According to the independent analysis commissioned by the Governor's Office of Energy, buildings can receive an abatement equal to 25% of their property taxes just for complying with local building codes. Second, continuously updating and strengthening building energy codes is a better way to ensure that Nevada's new buildings, large and small, are built right the first time. This is because these codes apply to all buildings and are designed at the outset to ensure that builders install cost-effective, energy-efficient appliances and building insulation. Every building today that is not built efficiently is a costly retrofit that we're going to have to make down the road as we further reduce greenhouse gas emissions to address climate change. We strongly urge you to support Senate Bill 442, and thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Will the next caller with the last three digits of 155 also please state and spell your name for the record? You may begin.
Thank you, Chair Harris and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Christy Cabrera, CHRISTI-CABRERA, and I'm the Policy and Advocacy Director for the Nevada Conservation League here in support of SB 442. The Nevada Conservation League was proud to support the original legislation to create this program in 2005. The program resulted in higher energy efficiency and sustainability standards in many large projects in Nevada, and we are proud to work with this body to adjust these abatements in the 2007 session. However, it is clear that the program has outlived its usefulness. The clear path forward is to adopt higher energy conservation standards that take advantage of all cost-effective energy efficiency measures and start to move towards net zero buildings. In the near future, we would like to see local governments move forward with adopting the most recent version of the International Energy Conservation Code and add provisions to make buildings electrification ready, including charging infrastructure for electric vehicles. We must reduce our carbon pollution from buildings if we are to meet our state's climate goals. And we look forward to working with this body, the Governor's Office of Energy, and our local governments to make this happen. We urge your support on SB 442. Thank you for your time.
Will the next caller with the last three digits of 333 please state and spell your name for the record? You may begin.
For the record, my name is Christine Brinker. That's spelled CHRISTINEBRINKER. Thank you, Chair Harris and members of the committee. My name again is Christine Brinker, and I am here today on behalf of the Southwest Energy Efficiency Project, or SWEEP. SWEEP is a nonprofit organization dedicated to advancing energy efficiency and clean transportation in Nevada in order to save customers money, protect the environment, address the climate crisis, and build a more resilient, sustainable economy. SWEEP is supportive of repealing the Green Building Tax Abatement Program, and we want to thank the Governor's Office of Energy for bringing this bill forward. As Ms. Yoakum and Director Bobzian were explaining, when the Green Building Tax Abatement Program was started in 2005, it was to reward properties for LEED certification or sustainable building practices above and beyond required building codes. And while we definitely support energy efficiency measures in sustainable buildings, the GBTA program has run its course and it no longer promotes the very goals that it was designed to achieve. The program was first started. Properties received tax abatements for showing that they built to standards above and beyond the adopted code. At the time, that was the 2009 IECC. But over the years, as the Governor's Office of Energy has adopted the latest version of the IECC, something of which we're very supportive, the green building rating system just did not keep up. And today we have a program that is unfortunately rewarding multi-million-dollar companies for essentially building their properties to the current required code, the 2018 IECC, or in some cases actually less efficient than the current code. These tax dollars should be kept in the communities and used for essential services rather than given away as multi-million-dollar tax abatements to properties that haven't proven sustainable building practices above and beyond the current requirements of law. So for these reasons, we urge you to pass this important piece of legislation, and thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you, caller. If there are any additional callers who would like to provide testimony in support of Senate Bill 442, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair Harris, at this time, there are no additional callers who would like to provide testimony in support.
All right. Is there anyone on the phone line who'd like to testify in opposition?
Callers, if you'd like to provide testimony in opposition to Senate Bill 442, please press star 9 now to take your place to the queue. Once again, to testify in opposition to SB 442, please press star 9 now. Chair Harris, at this time, no callers have indicated that they would like to provide testimony in opposition.
All right. Is there anyone who'd like to testify in the neutral position?
Callers, if you'd like to provide neutral testimony for Senate Bill 442, please press star 9 now to enter the queue. Will the caller with the last 3 digits of 888 please slowly state and spell your name for the record? You may begin.
Virginia Valentine, Virginia Valentine, President of the Nevada Resort Association. Good afternoon, Chair Harris, Vice Chair Brooks, and committee members. I'd like to start by acknowledging Director David Bobzian and Robin Yoakum with the Governor's Office of Energy for their work on sustainability initiatives and addressing climate change. We greatly appreciate their collaboration with us as we work together to reach the state's climate goals. Nevada's resort industry has a proud history of leadership in environmental sustainability. As a strong advocate for a sustainable future, the industry has created world-class programs to protect the planet and promote clean energy. Our members continually review and refine their operations to identify further ways to reduce greenhouse gases and carbon emissions, lower energy and water consumption, and divert more waste. When developing new projects, our members put sustainability and renewable energy at the forefront. Through sustainable design and construction, the resort industry leads the way in green building. Many resort projects have received LEED certification or other prestigious environmental awards and accolades. Just as one example of the industry's many innovations, MGM Resorts built America's largest contiguous rooftop solar array on top of the Mandalay Bay Convention Center. I could cite many more examples of our members' work, but that would take much longer than my 2 minutes. Many of these best-in-class developments in the resort industry built were only possible because of the Green Building Tax Abatement Program. And in fact, this successful program has helped make Nevada a leader in green building. We recognize that times have changed and this program may no longer provide the benefits and incentives it first did, so we understand the intent behind SB 442. We're here in neutral to ask for clarification on the timing of the effective date to ensure that those projects already approved or in development pipeline be allowed to participate in the program. As you know, the planning and design phase of a project can involve a substantial investment. Maybe project already in the pre-submittal phase that would be hurt by the proposed timeline to eliminate the program. We ask that you consider an extended effective date to protect those projects and investments underway. 2 weeks, given that this passes, and which it looks like it will, 2 weeks effective date wouldn't be a lot of notice for projects that may have spent months, if not years, in development. And we would like to work with the Governor's Office of Energy on an effective date to accommodate projects already in the pipeline that may be relying upon this program. Thank you, Chair Harris and members of the committee for the opportunity to speak before you today.
Thank you, caller. If there are any additional callers who would like to provide neutral testimony, please press *9 now to enter the queue. Chair Harris, at this time, there are no additional callers wishing to provide neutral testimony.
Thank you so much. We'll go ahead and close out the testimony portion of the hearing, and I'll kick it back to you all if you would like to make any closing comments.
Thank you, Chair Harris, members of the committee. David Bobson for the record. Again, know you're very busy, and we appreciate the opportunity this afternoon to put this before you. We will be, as I mentioned at the outset, having a conversation with the Nevada Resort Association to clarify the project pipeline, the intake process, and what impacts there may be given the effective date that's in the bill. And we will update you as soon as we can on those conversations.
Thank you so much. We appreciate that. And before I let you go, we have one additional question from a committee member, Senator Spearman.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay.
And this may, Mr. Bobsey, this may be more of a statement than a question, but as I was listening to the presentation, one of the things that is important in Nevada is that we only meet every other year. And so if something doesn't happen with this legislation during this legislative session, I imagine that puts us pretty far behind the power curve. And what, if anything, could that mean for meeting our future goals?
Thank you, Senator Spearman. David Bobson for the record. I am also acutely aware of that, and that's definitely the spirit behind this bill, recognizing that because we're about to enter this era where the IECC will eclipse what is being abated with the incentives. The concern being that local governments in particular could find themselves in a very unwelcome position in the next 2 years of having to give out abatements for construction that's already the base standard, that is a very untenable position. That said, as far as the climate impacts, as we heard from support testimony, we commit as an agency to start that conversation following session so that we have something for the next legislature to talk about how we improve policy in Nevada related to the built environment.
So thank you. You said municipalities, that's cities? Are we talking money?
Local governments, David Bobson for the record, thank you, Senator Spearman. Local governments, including municipalities, county governments as well, that's where the majority of the impact is from the loss of tax revenue through these abatements.
Okay, we will go ahead and close the hearing then on Senate Bill 442. Thank you all so much for being with us. We'll move on now to our work session. We're going to do this in two parts. Members should have received some information about a consent calendar. On that consent calendar are AB 123, AB 154, AB 188, AB 281, and AB 403. Do the committee members wish to pull any of those items off for further discussion? Okay, not seeing any at this time, I will accept a motion to do pass. We have a motion from Vice Chair Brooks, a second from Senator Spearman. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. I will assign the floor statement for 123 to Senator Hammond, AB 154 to Senator Spearman, AB 188 to Vice Chair Brooks, AB 281 to myself, and AB 403 to Senator Pickard. Okay. With that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Scully to walk us through the rest of the items. Oh. Was that one? No, we're going to do it last. I'll have her walk us through the rest of the items, starting with Assembly Bill 32.
Thank you, Chair Harris. For the record, Susan Scully with the Research Division of the Legislative Council Bureau. The first bill would be then Assembly Bill 32 in its first reprint. This was sponsored by the Assembly Committee on Judiciary on behalf of the Nevada Supreme Court, and this bill had a hearing on May 5th. Assembly Bill 32 creates a process for filing a complaint for expedited relief in justice court related to the towing or immobilization of a motor vehicle. Complaint must be filed within 21 days, and the appropriate parties must be named. If a complaint fails to meet the criteria, it must be dismissed by the court without prejudice, although dismissal does not affect the right of the parties to pursue, or the vehicle owner to pursue civil damages. The court will determine if the vehicle was lawfully or unlawfully towed or immobilized and enter a declaratory order regarding possession and costs. If the court determines the vehicle was unlawfully towed or immobilized, the person storing the vehicle must release the vehicle to the owner immediately upon the presentation of a certified copy of the court order. This bill also requires the operator where towed vehicles are stored to mail written notice within 24 hours after towing to the registered owner of the towed vehicle. You will recall that at the hearing, an amendment was submitted by the tow operators of Northern Nevada and agreed to by the bill's sponsor. The attached amendment submitted by the tow operator removes the requirement in subsection 7 to mail the written notice within 24 hours and instead adds a requirement that information on the availability of assistance from legal aid programs be added to signage currently required to be posted at these facilities. After the hearing, the chair has also proposed an amendment to subsection 3 on page 1 and line 40 as follows, changing the must to may with respect to the dismissal of the case. The assembly vote was unanimous on the first reprint, and with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Ms. Scully. Do committee members have any questions on AB 32? Not seeing any, I'll accept a motion to amend and do pass.
I move that we amend do pass.
Motion from Senator Brooks, second from Senator Spearman. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion passes unanimously. I'll assign the floor statement to Senator Spearman. I believe that'll take us next to AB 301. Ms. Scully, if you could walk us through that, please.
Thank you, Chair Harris. This is Susan Scully for the record with the Research Division of the Legislative Council Bureau. Assembly Bill 301 in its first reprint was sponsored by Assemblyman Miller and others and heard in this committee on May 5th. Assembly Bill 31 requires tow car operators to immediately release vehicles to their owners at no charge if the tow is from a residential complex for lack of registration or an expired registration, and the owner provides evidence of registration that predates the tow. A private property owner requesting a tow from a residential complex with designated parking must make reasonable efforts, such as emailing or calling, to notify the vehicle owner that it may be towed and may not tow the vehicle until 5 days after such notice. Further, the bill requires tow operators to independently verify the registration status before towing a vehicle, and to retain proof of this verification in electronic or physical form. If the vehicle owner is unable to provide proof of registration, storage charges will start to accrue only after 48 hours. The measure requires the Nevada Transportation Authority to implement a hardship tariff program that will allow vehicle owners facing financial hardship to apply for a reduced tariff rate as determined by the NTA to recover their vehicles. Several amendments have been proposed to this amendment. Number 1, during the hearing, Senator Spearman proposed a conceptual amendment relating to some data collection. Since that time, she has determined to withdraw the request for that amendment. After the hearing, the bill sponsor requested an amendment adding Senator Spearman as a joint sponsor. Also, after the hearing, in consultation with the bill sponsor, Chair Harris has proposed the conceptual amendments as set forth on the attachment. If you look at the attachment, there are 3 amendments. The first amendment is to NRS 487.290, and this section of the NRS relates to ability to tow vehicles, particularly unregistered vehicles unfit for use. This statute, as it currently reads, does not allow a person for any reason to keep more than 2 unregistered vehicles on property owned by that person if the vehicles are no longer intended for or in condition for lawful use on the highway. The proposed amendment would add a 5th exemption to this provision for residential complexes and common interest communities, so that a residential complex or common interest community would not be deemed in violation of the law for allowing more than 2 unregistered vehicles to be on their property at one time. This addition would not prevent them from having an unregistered vehicle towed if they chose to do so. The second amendment is Section 2 of the bill, NRS 706.4477. Essentially, this would remove the provisions relating to towing of a vehicle from a residential complex due to expired registration. Instead, it would clarify that only law enforcement and governmental units, such as cities or counties, doing code enforcement would have the authority to tow a vehicle based solely on an expired registration. This amendment would not affect the towing of unregistered vehicles or vehicles that were blocking fire hydrants, violating other parking provisions, etc. It would simply say that these entities cannot, the residential complexes, cannot tow a vehicle if the only violation is an expired registration. And the third amendment would be to amend NRS 116, which relates to common interest communities, to clarify that a common interest community may not tow a vehicle based solely on an expired registration. That concludes the presentation. I would point out that on the first reprint, the assembly vote was split. Thank you.
Are there any questions for Ms. Scully? Thank you so much for walking us through that. Senator Pickard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just, I'm trying to process the amendments, and I'm on the second page, the proposed conceptual amendments. How number 3 doesn't conflict with number 1. I thought that number 1 made it possible for common interest communities. It says it would not be a violation for them to allow more than, and it would not prevent them from having an unregistered vehicle towed. And then 3 says, but they can't tow it. How does 1 and 3 not conflict with each other?
And Senator Pickard, I'd be more than happy to answer that question. Actually, we cannot do 3 without doing 1. So I've told common interest communities they cannot tow for lack of registration. However, if I do not make the amendment in 1, they would then possibly be in violation of that section. And so I've given them an exemption from that section, which will allow them to not have to tow folks for not being registered.
Okay, but that really doesn't clarify the conflict, because it says this addition would not prevent them from having an unregistered vehicle towed if they chose to do so. And then in 3, I recognize we're changing different sections of law, but so this is kind of sleight of hand in my view.
Senator Pickard, I misunderstood your question. Let me give it one more shot.
Okay.
What we're looking at is unregistered versus expired registration. And so an unregistered car completely can still be towed, but they cannot be towed for expired registration.
Okay.
Those are 2 different things.
Right. So I'm envisioning vehicle with an expired registration. They pulled the plates so the tow company and the CIC wouldn't know. They tow it. Turns out it was an expired registration, and now they're in violation of 116.
I don't imagine that is how it would work. In violation of,
NRS 116, because we're putting the prohibition in 116, but in 487, we're saying that they're not prevented from an unregistered vehicle. The reason I say that is because particularly in apartment complexes, we see people pull their plates all the time. And so the owner or the tow operator would have no way of knowing, without running the VIN, whether or not it was an expired or it was truly unregistered. Because unregistered suggests it was never registered in the state of Nevada, whereas if it's an expired registration, or I'm sorry, if they were previously registered in Nevada but they didn't renew it, now it's expired. There's no way for the operator or the owner to know if they pulled the plates, which happens on a routine basis.
do we have Ms. O'Grady available? Maybe she can assist in delineating the difference between unregistered and expired, and maybe help Senator Pickard work through his fact pattern.
This is Eileen O'Grady with Legal. Well, the 487-290, the unregistered means, there's just no evidence of registration on the car. But under 2 and 3, it relates to expiration of registration. So, there would be some license plate on the car, or some indication that the car's been registered. And also, 487-290, covers other things besides registration. It's also, there's some issue with the condition of the car or whatever. It addresses that scenario as well.
Sure, and I don't think anybody's worried about if the car's broken down, if it's on jacks or something, they're going to yank that car. That's fine. I'm just, as I'm just trying to work through the practical side of this, people will pull their plates if that car's going to sit for a while, and this would make it impossible for them to tell. So what I hear you saying, Ms. O'Grady, is that it would fall under the amendment number 1, and they would be absolved of liability under 116 if in fact it had previously been registered, but they just couldn't tell by looking at it. Is that correct?
Yeah, if there's no plates on it, I don't know how they'd know it's expired registration.
All right, I appreciate that. Thank you.
And Senator Pickard, I'll put my intention on the record that there is, it is not my intent to create an entrapment situation where a tow operator tows a car that doesn't have plates on it. I would not expect them to know that it was expired and have them in violation.
No, that's great, and I appreciate getting that on the record, because if that's clear, and this goes, if somebody does get charge against them, now they have at least the legislative history to back them up. Thank you.
Any additional questions? Okay, seeing none at this time, I'd accept a motion to amend and do pass. Motion from Senator Spearman. Do we have a second? Second from Senator Brooks. Just 1 second. I just want to clarify that the motion is an amend and do pass with amendments 2 and 3, not 1. Discussion on the motion, Senator Hammond.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I've had discussions with you on the proposed amendments, and at first blush I didn't have a problem with them. I just want to make sure that I'm going to support the measure as written right now with the amendments. Given time, the next 24 hours, I'm sure some people will come by and say this is what it might do. So I'd like to hear more about what the practical effect might be, just so you know that it might be I might change my mind at some point, but right now I'm okay with it. So I'm going to vote yes.
Understood. Thank you so much, Senator Hammond. Senator Pickard.
Thank you. Now I'm really confused, because I thought that 1 and 3 were working together to allow CICs to tow unregistered vehicles and 3 would prohibit them from towing expired registration.
I apologize for the confusion. Senator Pickard, I was referring to amendments 1 through 3 on page 1. Not on 1 through 3 as part of amendment number 3. So if you go back to the first page of the work session document, you will see that there were 3 amendments proposed. We are not going to, Senator Spearman has withdrawn the first amendment.
I'm with you. Thank you. I appreciate that. So as I understand it, then we're adopting 2 and 3 on page 1 and 1, 2, and 3 on page 2. Is that accurate?
That is correct, Senator Pickard.
Thank you very much. I'll be yes with reservation then.
All right, thank you so much. Seeing no further discussion, we have a motion on the table. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. I'll take the floor statement on that bill. Ms. Scully, if you could take us to the next bill. I believe we are now on AB 320.
Thank you, Chair Harris. For the record, Susan Scully with the Research Division of the Legislative Council Bureau. Assembly Bill 320 in its first reprint was sponsored by Assemblyman Levitt and others, heard in this committee on April 26th. This bill revises the definition of large all-terrain vehicle to mean any ATV that has non-straddle seats and seating for at least 2 people. This bill also authorized the operation of large all-terrain vehicles on a street within a city or township with a population less than 25,000 if they are in compliance with the equipment and registration requirements applicable to large ATVs. It also adds main county roads to the list of designated highways upon which a person may operate a large ATV. The first reprint also allowed a city, township, or county to prohibit the operation of a large ATV on any portion of a street. After the hearing, the bill sponsor proposed to reverse the amendments adopted in the Assembly and return to the as-introduced version of the measure. To refresh your memory, and I have attached a copy of the as-introduced version, the as-introduced version made no changes to the definition of a large all-terrain vehicle and instead required action on the part of a city under 25,000 in population or a county to permit large ATVs to operate on a city street or a main county road. The Assembly vote was unanimous on the first reprint version. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Scully. Are there any questions? All right, seeing none, I'll accept a motion to amend and do pass. All right, motion from Senator Pickard, second from Senator Brooks. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Passes unanimously. Senator Hammond. He'll take the floor statement. All right. I believe that takes us now to Assembly Bill 388.
Thank you, Chair Harris. Assembly Bill 388 in its first reprint, sponsored by Assembly members C.H. Miller and Duran, heard in this committee on May 5th. Assembly Bill 388 requires the Public Utilities Commission to enact regulations establishing a program enabling providers of broadband or commercial radio service to participate in a voluntary contribution program for broadband infrastructure. This program will enable customers to opt in and make voluntary contributions as part of their monthly bill that will be distributed to the Office of Science, Innovation, and Technology, or OSIT, in the Governor's Office, who will administer infrastructure grants to support the expansion of broadband. The measure creates a new account within the Universal Service Fund and provides that existing limits to PUC's jurisdiction over broadband will not prevent it from carrying out duties with respect to this program. The bill also creates another account to be administered by OSIT, and the money in this account will be used primarily for broadband infrastructure grants to benefit persons with low income or living in rural areas. The bill also requires OSIT on a biennial basis to collect and map data and submit a report on the availability of broadband service in Nevada to the Governor and Legislature. Finally, the bill requires OSIT to establish a broadband-ready community certification program to advance the expansion of broadband infrastructure to underserved communities. You will recall at the hearing that the PUCN and OSIT submitted proposed amendments. After the hearing, the bill sponsors submitted the attached conceptual amendments, which incorporate the PUCN and the OSIT amendments to the extent relevant. The Assembly vote on reprint 1 of 388 was unanimous. Moving to the conceptual amendments on 388, you will see there are 7 of them. First, delete the new definition of broadband in Section 2 of the bill and reinstate the existing definition in Section 6. Number 2, direct the state treasurer to be responsible for establishing the program and remove the PUCN from that role. 3, amend the enforcement provisions so that the Bureau of Consumer Protection in the Office of the Attorney General is responsible for receiving, evaluating, and adjudicating consumer complaints, and provide for the jurisdiction of the BCP under the deceptive trade practice provisions of Chapter 598 in the NRS. Number 4, direct the state treasurer to be responsible for the collection of the donations from the providers and delete the requirement to use a third-party administrator. 5, eliminate the account for the voluntary contribution for broadband infrastructure and ensure that the money in the account for the grant program, which is the account which receives the customer donations, carries forward each year and does not revert to the general fund. 6, delete the requirement for mapping of broadband access by OSIT as currently required in Section 7.6, Sub 1 of the bill. And finally, number 7, amend Section 7.7 as generally set forth below, which is to set a deadline for the office for OSIT in consultation with local governments, broadband providers, and other stakeholders designated by the office to establish the Broadband Ready Community Certification Program. This amendment then would delete the rest of Section 7.7. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Scully. Are there any questions from members? Senator Pickard?
Thank you, Madam Chair. What was interesting was I was all stoked for this because I understood this to be, it was going to expand broadband to everyone, particularly given the pandemic and how we discovered pretty quickly that a lot of people didn't have it. Since then, I've had several of the counties, mostly rural, tell me that Section 7.7 was created without their input, that much of it conflicts with existing ordinance in many counties, that they can't meet the 60-day, some can't meet the 60-day application approval process, and some of the application processes exceed costs of $100. So they simply cannot absorb this as written. However, have you, Mr. Miller, had the opportunity to talk to these counties? I assume they've reached out to you. If not, shame on them. But am I expecting to hear, now that I put that on the record, that they're going to come to me and say, no, we worked it out?
And Mr. Miller, I'm going to, before you jump in there, I'm going to point Senator Pickard to the amended 7.7.
Works.
It is on the work session document. It is different than the version that you may have in front of you today. I'll kick it over to Ms. Scully to explain. And before I do so, I just want to put on the record that this is an amendment that was submitted in conjunction with some of those cities and municipalities.
Yes, Susan Scully for the record. Who do I work for? The Research Division of the Legislative Council Bureau. The amendment proposed in the conceptual amendment, you'll see that Section 7.7 there on the bottom of that page, it stops after, as used in this section, local government means. So the sections you're talking about are removed from the bill under the proposed conceptual amendment with
All
the
right.
ordinance. Thank you.
Nope, I see that difference now. I apologize. Man, we were looking at this morning, so I got what was latest at the time, so I apologize sure would be nice to have some time to review these things.
Amen, Senator Pickard. Senator Hammond, or Spearman, excuse me.
I know we don't look alike. Yeah, I was going to say, I want to commend the Assemblyman for bringing this bill. I know that last fall, several people were out literally going door to door, trying to make sure that people had not just computer, but make sure they had broadband. And again, COVID made us realize some stark realities. And I guess with relationship to this bill, the digital divide is just not a saying, it's real. So thank you.
All right, any further questions or comments? Okay, at this time, I will accept a motion to amend and do pass Assembly Bill 388. Motion from Senator Spearman, a second from Senator Hammond. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed, nay. All right, passes unanimously. Congratulations, Assemblyman. Senator Spearman, I'll assign the floor statement to you. Ms. Scully, if you could walk us through AB 412.
Thank you, Chair Harris. For the record, Assembly Bill 412 in its original version. And I would also ask that you check that you have the revised work session page. It has a red revised at the top of the page with the date of May 12th.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Assembly Bill 412 provides that a neighborhood occupantless vehicle defined as a low-speed vehicle not intended for human occupancy may be operated on roadways with speed limits greater than 35 to 45 miles per hour, in addition to highways with speed limits less than 35 miles per hour. The bill also adds operator to the statute governing low-speed vehicles or slow-moving vehicles in addition to drivers. The measure provides that a fully autonomous vehicle that is exclusively operated by an automated driving system is exempt from requirements for equipment to illuminate with multiple beams, mirrors to reflect to the driver, windshield wipers, and a muffler unless the vehicle has an internal combustion engine. At the hearing, Senator Pickard raised an issue relating to the interpretation of the language in Section 3. And in response, Committee Legal Counsel worked with Neuro on a proposed amendment as follows. I would also point out the orange language there in the middle of the Section 3 was what necessitated the change in the work session page and was an oversight on our part adding to the amendment. Neuro does have an exemption from the NHTSA, and then the rest of the amendment just clarifies the liability issues regarding to the issue that Senator Pickard raised about being in compliance with state law. And the Assembly vote on this bill was unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Scully. Are there any questions? Senator Pickard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Don't want to disappoint. One of the other points that I made during the hearing was whether or not the operator will be deemed a driver for purposes of motor vehicle accidents if liability is ever attached to if fault is ever attached to the occupantless vehicle. State law does require that we determine who the driver is in order to be operative, and this does not address that. But it's my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, that during the testimony they did say that it would be the driver. So I just want to get on the record, if that's accurate, that for purposes of a motor vehicle accident, if they are deemed at fault, they are deemed a driver for purposes of liability.
Senator Hammond, I can confirm that that is what was said at the hearing.
That's Senator Pickard.
Senator Pickard, I got Hammond on the brain today.
Most people do.
Senator Pickard, I can confirm that that is what was said at the hearing.
Very good. I just want to make sure that, I like what they did. I just wanted to make sure that was part of the understanding so that we have a record that can be relied on. Thank you.
Any additional questions on this one? All right, I'll go ahead and accept a motion to amend and to pass. Motion from Senator Spearman, second from Senator Brooks. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion passes unanimously. Senator Brooks, would you like to take the floor statement? All right. I'll kick it back to you, Ms. Scully, and I believe we are now on AB 444.
Thank you, Chair Harris. For the record, Susan Scully with the Research Division of the Legislative Council Bureau. Assembly Bill 444 in its first reprint, sponsored by the Assembly Committee on Growth and Infrastructure and had a hearing in this committee on May 3rd. Assembly Bill 444 authorizes a transportation network, or TNC, to enter into a contract with certain limousine motor carriers who hold certificates of public convenience and necessity to allow drivers employed by the limousine motor carrier to receive connections to potential passengers from the TNC in exchange for the payment of a fee by the limousine motor carrier. The measure allows the sharing of information electronically between the passenger, TNC, limousine motor carrier, and driver for the purposes of providing estimates, receipts, and information regarding passenger and driver. The bill also addresses which excise tax applies to limousine services provided pursuant to a contract with the transportation network company. Proposed amendments were submitted by Captain, a limousine service, at the hearing. After the hearing, further amendments were submitted. Based on the submitted amendments, discussions with Captain and other parties, and in consultation with the chair, Committee Legal Counsel has prepared the attached mock-up. And I have indicated the assembly vote there. I'm going to quickly go through the main changes in the mock-up, but any questions should be directed to Committee Legal Counsel. Most of the deletions, or many, were simply simplifications or provisions determined to be unnecessary. On page 4, you will see that instead of language terminating the contract, which is deleted on page 3, at the top of page 4, the new green language simply requires the TNC to notify, or requires the limousine carrier to notify the TNC of a change in the status of their certificate of public convenience. It also then, in the next subsection 4, it switches the excise taxes to which these transactions are subject. 0.14 is the tax on TNCs. 0.15 is the motor carrier tax. They are both 3%. Moving to page 8, you will see a number of changes, simply clarifying the limo drivers being subject to TNCs when operating under a contract with the TNC. So there are some conforming changes there. Continues on the next page. And then finally on page 10, there is an effective date added of July 1, 2021, which was added at the request of Captain. With that, Eileen O'Grady would be happy to answer any questions.
All right. Are there any questions? Oh, look at that. You kick it to Eileen and she gets off easy. Senator Pickard?
Well, I just a quick comment. I appreciate everybody addressing the issues that I raised. I appreciate the changes, the clarifications that were made, and I think they were important, and so I can support this. So I'll move amend to pass.
All right. Do we have a second motion for Senator Pickard? Do we have a second? Second from Senator Brooks, Vice Chair Brooks. Any discussion on the motion? All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. Senator Pickard, would you like the floor statement? Okay, we'll assign it to you. Ms. Scully, I'll kick it back to you. I believe we are now on Senate Bill 430. Almost there, guys.
Thank you, Chair Harris. For the record, Susan Scully with the Research Division of the Legislative Council Bureau. This bill is Senate Bill 430. It was sponsored by this committee on behalf of the Office of the Governor. It was heard in this committee on May 10th. This bill revises the governance and scope of the Nevada Infrastructure Bank. Governance is expanded to include the Director of the Office of Energy, The list of infrastructure projects that may be funded by the bank is expanded to include those relating to water, wastewater, renewable energy, recycling, sustainability, digital, social, and economic development. The measure also includes definitions of the types of eligible infrastructure and expands the definition of a qualified borrower to include an Indian reservation or colony and a private entity created for charitable or educational purposes. This bill also makes establishment of the bank effective on July 1, 2021. After the hearing, 2 small proposed amendments were submitted by the officer of the governor, and there is a fiscal note on file for the bill, although it is exempt from the requirement for a fiscal note before action. Looking at the proposed amendments, it removes the words transmission and sale from the definition of renewable energy infrastructure, clarifies in Section 12 that a qualified borrower is a private nonprofit entity created for charitable or educational purposes. Thank you.
All right, are there any questions? Okay, seeing none, I'll accept a motion to amend and do pass. Motion from Senator Spearman, second from Vice Chair Brooks. Any discussion on the motion? Senator Pickard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just quickly, I appreciated the addition of nonprofit entity because I thought that might open this up really substantially to for-profit organizations. So that's good. I still think that we are going to see a problem that $75 million will be grossly undercapitalized. I understand that is seed money, but it's going to take another session to ultimately appropriate enough money to make it worth. And so I'm going to be a yes, but with some reservations. Thank you.
And Senator Pickard, I'm sure the Infrastructure Bank would be welcome to accept a deposit from.
Give me your checkbook and I'm happy to do so.
All right, any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously, and I will take the floor statement on Senate Bill 430. Ms. Scully, stop me if I'm being too hasty, but I believe that concludes our work session for the day. Fantastic. I also believe that concludes the committee's work up to this next deadline. Well done, everyone. I want to give a special shout out to Ms. Scully and Ms. O'Grady. I know they have been working feverishly today on behalf of all of the members who had bills on work session. Ms. Shope as well. I believe we have the best committee staff in the building, and I will say that unabashedly. So thank you so much for your hard work. The state of Nevada is much better off for you being here. Yay. Well done. We'll go ahead and kick it over to Broadcast, who's also doing a fantastic job all throughout session, to see if there's anyone who'd like to give any public comment.
Thank you, Chair. Callers, if you'd like to provide public comment today, please press *9 now to enter the queue. Once again, callers, if you'd like to provide public comment, please press *9 now to enter the queue. Chair Harris, the public line is open and working. However, no callers have indicated that they would like to provide public comment.
All right, thank you so much. Barring any unforeseen circumstances, we will be adjourned until Monday, May 17th at 3:30. Have a great rest of your deadline week, everyone. We're adjourned.